Giggab, episode 506 for Monday, November 3rd, National Sandwich Day. Yum. 2025. Woohoo! Greetings, folks, and welcome to Giggab, the show by, for, and about working musicians. Here in Durham, New Hampshire, I'm Dave Hamilton, and our sponsor today is Claude, where you can go to Claude.ai/Giggab and sign up today and then get 50% off of Claude Pro, which includes access to Claude Code and all kinds of other great things. We'll talk more about that here in a little bit. Like I said, I'm Dave Hamilton here in Durham, New Hampshire, and our guest co-host for today is you. We've had so many emails come in and notes and texts and all kinds of stuff that it was time to do a little solo episode. The first thing that I want to do, though, is I want to talk about cleaning up audio, because I'm doing a little experiment right now, as I often do. And I have a really loud little fan underneath my desk. It's one of those plug-in heater things that you get for like, I don't know, 30 or 40 bucks on Amazon. It was a little chilly in the studio today, so I plugged it in. And if I turn off all noise mitigation, you will hear this. And then we're going to talk about how we might mitigate noise like this with plugins, because that's exactly what I'm doing. So hear that? That's the noise. So there you go. So that's the fan sitting behind me, sitting underneath me. It's a little noisy here. Right. I've got 4 things, actually, that we're going to play with. The first is free, and it is a free set of Accusonus plugins that, of course, the links will all be in the show notes at giggabpodcast.com. And I promise once this segment's over, the noise is going to go away for 2 reasons. 1, I know how to mitigate it. And 2, I'm going to turn off the little heater. But it's a great little experiment. It's a great way to test these things that I wanted to test anyway. So it's nice when things work out that way. But there's 6 plugins in this Accusonus ERA 6 bundle that it's been out for about a year. It's still available. Again, the link's in the show notes. The first one that we're going to turn on is the ERA 6 noise remover. Again, totally free. Now, there's 2 things we're going to be looking for. One that you'll hear, and one that I'll hear. Well, I'll hear both. You'll only hear the first one. The first is, how much noise does it reduce? And the second, that matters a lot to me, is how much latency does it introduce? Because I got to hear myself on delay while I'm recording. So here we go. Here goes the ERA 6 noise remover. And I've kicked it in. You can hear the noise pretty much went away. I have it set to about 60% processing here. If I bring it down, you can kind of hear that's at 6% processing. So we're going to go back up to about, I think 60, 65 here. And it works great. I am hearing myself on a bit of a delay. I don't know if you heard me slow down in talking. I'm somewhat used to hearing these delays, so I can usually get my brain around it, but it's not the most fun exercise to be doing right now. However, this works, right? And if I needed it on a guest, I would not notice the delay, nor would they, and yet it would deal with the sound. So for free, for use on a guest, friggin' amazing. Love it. All right, now that that's gone, and I have my voice back to where I want it, we will move into the not free realm. The first one that we're going to use is Waves Clarity VX. It's part of the Wave 16. So if you have the Wave 16 bundle, you would have it. If not, it's $50, $49.99. And I will dial it up here as we're talking. So I said Waves Clarity VX, and that's what I'm going to put in place. You heard it probably kick in. I am going to put it on the CPU Eco neural network. You have 3 sets or 3 sort of algorithms you can choose from. The Eco one is the least CPU impact, so hopefully the least latency. I am hearing a little bit of latency, less than I was with the ERA bundle, but I'm still probably getting 100 milliseconds, about 100 milliseconds if I had to guess. But let's dial this up. we'll go from 0 to, oh yeah, right into the 60s or the 70s. We're at 75 now. I'm going to talk for a little bit, let it kind of adapt to my voice, which is how this works. And I can still hear a little bit in the background. Let's see. Should we crank it up a little bit more? What if we go all the way up to 100? Yeah, it's still picking up some. I wonder if we change algorithms. So instead of the broad eco algorithm, if I go with the broad 1 algorithm, that doesn't seem to change whether the delay that I'm hearing. And yeah, maybe that's better. So that's about 75. There's just a knob that you turn and it goes from 0 to 75 or 0 to 100. And we're at 75 now. That seems to work pretty well. So $40, $50, sorry. Clarity VX from Waves. Links for all of these things in the show notes, of course. All right, we will turn off the Clarity VX. The noise is back. Great. We will go with one that I have used for a very long time. From iZotope RX11 Voice Denoise. We'll kick that in here. And this is just in adaptive mode set as a default. And seems to be doing fairly well. I can increase reduction, I think. Oh, yeah. And I can, should I increase, decrease? There's the threshold going down. I'll bring the threshold up. Okay, so that's pretty good. And I am not hearing much of a delay. There might have been some clicking, some like digital artifacting that I just heard. But this is, so right now, yeah, there's some digital artifacting that I get with this iZotope thing that makes it difficult to use when I'm doing live stuff. But what you heard there as I was loading the web page for it so that I could show it on the YouTube stream. And as I was doing that, that's where that clicking started to come in. So does a great job, and has very little latency, but we're getting some of that artifacting, at least with the mixer that I use. It's a piece of software called SoundDesk, which I'll also put in there. It's like $40 or something, and it's essentially turns your Mac into a digital mixer. And I love SoundDesk. It's one of my favorite things in the world. But you can hear with that plugin engaged, it does not play nicely with SoundDesk anymore. It used to. Don't know what changed. But we will turn that off. And now we will go to the final one in this mix, which is Waves NS1. This is, again, a very simple kind of one knob sort of thing. You kick it in, it has a little slider, and as you bring the slider up, it would, in theory, start getting rid of some noise. So we're at 0, 30, 50, 60. Okay, there you go. I don't hear that noise anymore while I'm talking, nor when I'm silent. And for $40, this plugin does the best job that I have heard. In fact, I was running this plugin as I started the show, and I turned it off as we went into our little experiment here. A fun little experiment, and hopefully a valuable one for many of you out there. For $40, this NS1 noise suppressor, this will stay in my chain here, and I would use it on probably not me, because I rarely need it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn off the fan thing here. So I'm just going to look under the desk and make sure it turns off. Yeah, there it goes. Now it's counting down. So it will be off in a minute. I will disable NS1, and in about a minute, you'll hear it go away. But in the meantime, I will re-engage the noise gate that I use. Now you hear it when I'm talking, which, given that it's just me, it's just us today, you're going to hear that thing for another, how many seconds? 30 seconds at this point. So it will go away as we move on to more topics. I suppose since we're talking about fixing the things that we hear, now is as good a time as any for me to talk about some things that I've learned about hearing health recently. I listen occasionally to the Huberman Health Huberman Lab podcast, and Huberman is Alex Huberman. How come I can't think of his name? Andrew Huberman. Yeah, he is a Stanford professor, I think, of ophthalmology. And then he also does this podcast, sort of separate from what he does in his work in Stanford. And I always look at the subjects of the episodes before I listen, because they're like 2 hours long and very deep, very nerdy. He's good at explaining nerdy things, but they're all still very nerdy. And when I saw recently that he had an episode about the title of it being "Protect and Improve Your Hearing and Brain Health," I thought, well, this is one that I teed up and listened to. He had Dr. Konstantina Stankovic on. I believe she's also a Stanford professor focusing on hearing. I highly recommend anyone out there who is also obsessed with protecting your hearing, and if you're not, I encourage you to at least consider it, because, you know, it's what we do. A, you're a podcast listener, so hearing is important. But B, you either are a musician or someone who is around live music a lot, either because you enjoy it or because it is your work, or both. And boy, howdy, isn't it a good thing to be able to hear music and podcasts, but music especially. It's not something I would like to lose. So I listened to this episode, and there were some very interesting things that come from it. I'm not going to just dissect the whole thing, nor am I going to summarize the whole thing. I really encourage you to listen, because I wound up doing some things because of this. It's very interesting what happens with hearing and hearing health, and the belief that tinnitus is something that you just have to live with is now an antiquated belief. And I know that probably comes as news to many of you. It certainly came as news to me, and I love that. I have a very mild amount of tinnitus. I believe it came from playing gigs in that blues rock band in Austin years and years ago with that open back Fender twin reverb right next to me. However, there's other things that I've exposed myself to. It's right about 6K is where I hear it. Very mild. They do say that one of the best treatments for tinnitus, at least the very initial treatment, is cognitive behavioral therapy. Yes, regular talk therapy. The less you think about your tinnitus, the less you obsess about it, the less you worry about it, the less it will impact you. However, there are ways of improving our hearing health and protecting our hearing health too. And they talk about a lot of these. Since listening to this episode, I have started taking some additional supplements for my hearing health. I will tell you what I am taking, but I am not recommending you take this. I am recommending you listen to the episode and figure out what might work for you. But after listening to the episode and then doing some research with our sponsor and partner, Claude, because Claude is great for doing that kind of research, I am taking two things daily. Magnesium, which I take before bed every night, magnesium in the right form, and I will look up what that form is to get it to make sure I'm telling you right. I think I have it in my things here, but the right form of magnesium, they certainly talk about it in the episode, and I am taking that every night before I go to bed because that's what it recommends. And then I'm also taking something called NAC, and I can never remember. It's the thing that people also take to recover from a night of drinking alcohol. But NAC and DHM, which is also paired with it, protects your inner ear hair cells and then also supports liver detox, right? So that I'm taking before bed, yes. But if I know that I am going to be in a loud music environment, even if I'm protecting my hearing, even if I'm wearing in-ears, which can protect your hearing, of course, if you keep the volume low, I will take an extra amount of that before my performance, about 30 minutes before and then I take my normal dose before bed. The magnesium I take just before bed. It doesn't do anything to take that before you have exposure. So yes, very interesting things, and I'm still looking at the right kind of magnesium that I'm taking here. But if I can't find it easily because I'm talking while I'm trying to read, magnesium glycinate is the form that was recommended on the show. But please go listen to the show. Don't just take the stuff that I take, because we might be different people. In fact, if we're not, let me know, because that would be pretty scary to find a doppelganger. Not even a doppelganger, just a clone. Anyway, the links for that are in the show notes. You can listen, of course, on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you want to find all that stuff. All right. We have some listener questions to get to. I have some reviews of things to talk about here. We have giggab to get to. The next thing I want to talk about is our sponsor, Claude, because like I said, I used Claude.ai to help me come up with the agenda for this episode. I had all kinds of things that I wanted to say and talk about. Obviously, we've already talked about some. I've mentioned that we're going to talk about others. And I always kind of formulate it into an agenda when I'm doing this, but I was having trouble today kind of breaking things apart. And that's one of the places where I really have found that AI helps as an assistant, is when you take all kinds of information and feed it into it and then ask it to do something with that information, either summarize it, find patterns in it, or in my case today, to organize it in a way that hopefully makes sense and has a nice little flow of going through. This is like I said, it's one of my favorite uses for AI is when I've created something to put it in there and have it help make sense of it. It helps me with writer's block sometimes. And I don't just mean like creative writer's block, but certainly that. But also, if I need to write an email and I'm like, I'm just not sure where to start. Or even if I have a big project to do, I will just kind of, I use the term barf. I just, feed all my thoughts into Claude and then have it spit that stuff back out to me. And AI is great for this. Claude is the AI for minds that don't stop at good enough, right? It is the collaborator that actually understands your entire workflow and thinks with you, not for you. So whether you're debugging code at midnight, which I certainly do with Claude, or strategizing your next business move, Claude extends your thinking to tackle all the problems that matter. It really helps. They've got these internal and external research capabilities that go way deeper than basic web search. It's the thing that I use for search now, right? Think comprehensive, reliable analysis with proper citations, right? That can take hours of research and just turn it into minutes. I just love the way Claude works. So if you're ready to tackle bigger problems, sign up for Claude today and get 50% off Claude Pro when you use my link, Claude.ai/giggab. That's Claude.ai/giggab right now for 50% off your first 3 months of Claude Pro. And that includes access to all the features that I've mentioned so far in today's episode and will be mentioning because, like I said, I used it to really help kind of frame the discussion for today. Claude.ai/giggab. Really, really fun stuff and really helpful. And I encourage you to go check it out. And my thanks to Claude for sponsoring this episode. Shall we do some questions? I told you that you were the co-host for this episode, so I think it's only fair that we start getting into some questions here. Paul wrote in and asked about his in-ear monitors, and he was asking specifically about Ultimate Ears. He says, do they do any kind of maintenance? I'm getting some ear gunk pretty far in there, and they're starting to sound a little distorted. And all of the in-ear manufacturers do maintenance. I love the way Ultimate Ears has structured theirs because they have a flat rate. I believe it's $150 repair that covers everything. You send your ears into them, and they do it all, including, if necessary, replacing any of the armatures or whatever in there, and then they send them back to you. And I love the way Ultimate Ears repair. It just works. So Ultimate Ears Pro repair. Let me see if I can find the link for you. But yeah, it's a flat rate repair, and I absolutely love that. It just makes life so easy. While you're it's gone up. It's $199 now. My apologies. I guess I know it was $150 the last time I did it, but still. And they give you a 15-day turnaround, 15 business day turnaround time. I have had them come back in less time than that, but it's just a flat rate repair. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes too if you're an Ultimate Ears customer. But if you're not, if your ears are from somebody else, reach out to them and find out what their out of warranty repair is, because within warranty, of course, it's covered. Out of warranty, find out what it is, and they all do something similar. But I love this flat rate repair. It just makes life so much easier, and all of that good stuff. So thank you, Paul, for asking that. And yeah, that was Paul, our friend Paul Kent, who had texted me about that. So always good to hear from Mr. Kent. Listener Terry wrote in and said, we just had a venue contact us 2 days before the gig that they asked us to play, and they said they were sorry, but their boss had accidentally double booked the venue. It's making me rethink using contracts, Terry says. We've always done well with not much more than a handshake, but this really sucks. Can anyone offer a source for a band contract that won't break the bank? And this sucks. This kind of thing happens to all of us. If you play long enough, it will happen again and again and again. And yes, contracts are good to have. And if you want a boilerplate contract, I would say this even if they weren't a sponsor of the episode, use AI. Ask it for one. It will help you create one. You can tell it what state you're in or what country you're in, and it will help you create a contract. I know it sounds crazy. You want to check the things that it puts in there. You don't just want to have it create a contract, print it, and sign it. Read through it. Make sure it actually makes sense. But it will help you formulate all of that good stuff. And, you can tell it, hey, look, this is one of the things I love about AI is tell it, hey, look, this contract that you came up with is too long. It's 6 pages. I want 1 page, and I want it conversational in tone, right? And it can help summarize and like pull stuff out and do all that stuff. So that's what I would do. However, I also wouldn't let a one-off scenario like this dictate what is going to be your policy going forward. It happens. It's happened to me. It will happen again to me. It has happened to you. And if it hasn't, it will. And if it has, it will happen again to you too. Somebody giving you a couple days notice. The question is, even if you had a contract in place, and this is perhaps the thought exercise, what would you do? Even if the contract says, they have to give you a week's notice for cancellation. Okay, well, wouldn't you rather take it? Now you have some leverage on your side, right? But my thought, assuming I want to continue playing at this club, and this is truly a one-off, would be, okay, let's use that leverage to just make sure we get rebooked, to make sure we get things locked down, making the future better. It's always, what can I do to make the future better? Trying to get people to make up for what's happening currently, to me, always seems like the short game. It's like, if you in a scenario like this, if Terry goes in and says, let's say Terry had a contract, this was too short of a cancellation window based on the contract. You go in, you say, I demand you pay me for the gig. It's probably the last time you're ever going to play at that club. And maybe word gets around. So think about how you want to use that leverage, because if you can use it to foster a deeper relationship with the club, it might work out better for you in the long term. That's just my thought on that. All right, moving on to Brian and band members. This is where things get interesting. Brian writes, in a recent episode, you asked listeners how they manage band member availability. It says, here's how my band does it. First, I created a Google spreadsheet that starts with a weekend day in column A, the date in column B, and the holidays in column, he puts those over in column D. He says band members go to their respective availability column for each member and indicate their availability as a yes, a no, or a maybe. So this is just a simple spreadsheet with the date and whether you're available on the date. And he's just doing weekend days and holidays are the dates that he has put in this spreadsheet. Band members go in, check it off, yes, no, maybe. And then he can calculate, because it's a spreadsheet, the number of members available for a given date based on the number of yeses in the availability columns. And then, as the band leader, he can schedule gigs based on the availability. And then once gigs are scheduled, the details are also entered into columns on this, things like venue, start time, stop time, how many miles away from the practice location, and pay, or, whatever the compensation is. Is it, how much are you getting paid in cash? Plus, can you do tips? Is there food or drinks included, etc.? And then there's a column for notes. So that's an interesting way of doing this. And then he also, because it's a spreadsheet, and Brian's a spreadsheet nerd like me, he can calculate the dollars per gig time hours. So how long of a drive is it? What time do you have to get there for load in? What time will you get back? Calculate it all together. What are your dollars per hour? I don't know if you want to see that number, but you certainly can. And, there you go. So I like that. That's fascinating. Love this. Thank you for sharing that, Brian. Folks, how do you manage your band member availability? Feedback at giggabpodcast.com is where you're going to send that to. All right. John has a question for us. I hope we have an answer for you, John. John writes in and says, we refer to ourselves as a party band in that we play danceable music across many genres, and we have a great stage presence, and our front person is fantastic at getting the crowd excited and moving. Our hard work has started to pay off, and we've begun to command a decent rate and have had some success booking even more lucrative private events. Ah, yes, there you go. We love our local bar scene, but we want to keep progressing. The issue is that bar gigs are often booked up to a year in advance, while the private gigs tend to be shorter notice. It feels like rolling the dice to keep our calendar clear of the bar gigs and wait for something better to come up. We've had mixed results with booking agents. Anyone have thoughts or advice? So this is really interesting because I think you need to make a decision here about what your band is. What I mean by that is your band a bar band that occasionally fits in private gigs where you can? Or is your band a band that plays a function gig, a private, I don't want to say wedding band, but weddings could be on that list, but also corporate parties or just any kind of parties. Is your band a function band that occasionally plays clubs to keep your name out there? Essentially, you're using the clubs as advertising for you. And then there's a whole other thing to throw into the mix here. Whether you're a club band or a party band, the frequency with which you play club gigs in the same general area is also something to consider, especially if you're talking about commanding better rates. If you play the same club 3 nights in a row, chances are, unless you're in a very tourist-heavy area where there's just constant turnover of crowd and attendees, if you're playing 3 gigs in the same club or even the same town 3 nights in a row, less people will come to each of those gigs than if you had just played one. And the same is true if you play the same club or the same town every Friday night for 4 weekends in a row. Less people will come out every Friday night. But once you start to develop your band, and now you're doing your mailing list, and you've got your Facebook, but you definitely have your mailing list, and you do your Instagram and also your mailing list. Your mailing list is the one thing you control. You do not get to control the algorithm of whether Facebook shows the event to people or not. Even when you pay them, it gets better. But, So you got your mailing list. Once you start to develop a following for your band, watch the saturation level for every general area. You know, how far are people going to drive? So let's say it's 60 minutes. Okay, maybe 30 minutes. Depends on your band, right? So now space out your gigs both temporally and distance-wise so that you're getting the right saturation where people are seeing you frequently enough, but not so frequently that they get sick and tired of seeing you. It happens. We've all seen it. So you still need to make this decision. Are you a club band? Are you a function band? And it sounds like you want to be a function band here, but you don't necessarily, but it's a leap. It's a risk, right? And I think you even said it's like rolling the dice. It is. Now, let's say you book club gigs for a year out. What happens if with 6 months notice, you cancel one of those, right? So you find out today that you've got a wedding in April that you want to play, or a party in April that you want to play, and it happens to be on the same night as a club gig. What's that like with that club to call them up and say, hey, we've got a conflict. It's 6 months out. I'd like to work together to resolve it. Chances are that's going to be okay. Now let's accelerate the schedule here. How's that conversation go when it's 5 months out, 4 months, 3 months, 2 months, 1 month? We've all gotten those last minute calls to play a club gig because somebody canceled on Thursday for a Friday night or a Saturday night gig, right? Or day of the gig even. We get those calls, right? So it happens. Clubs are used to it, especially if you can also have, maybe there's another band that you know that plays similar music, and you could call them up and say, hey, I've got this gig in April. I can't do it anymore because we've got to play this private party that we were booked for. Are you available that night? If so, I'd like to recommend you to the club. Now you're showing up not just with a problem, but with a solution, and you're doing some goodwill for your local gigging community. And that always comes back to be helpful. So I think that's where you got to think about it. I think there is a world where it's totally okay to book your club gigs. And then especially if you are good, like you say you are, and you've got demand and you're able to engage people, clubs are going to want to work with you, especially if you make yourself easy to work with. So I think that's totally fine. I think you got to make the decision to be a function band first, John. And it sounds like that's the direction you're heading in. So maybe hearing about it from dear old Dave will help, but maybe not. Bill saw my post on Instagram about the exact proper way to wrap cables. I will put a link to that post in the show notes because I know it's super important that everybody wraps cables the right way. The way I do it is, and the video, it's easier to see than have it described. But in short, I take the cable, I put the two ends together. So, you know, the two connectors, if it's an XLR cable, the two XLR connectors, put them together, hang the cable, find the middle, right? And then I take that middle point and I bring that up to the two ends and I just keep folding it in half, kind of like sheets, until such time that I can tie it in a loose knot. Take one end, which is a bundle of things now, with the other end, which is a bundle of things, tie it in a loose knot, throw it in a bag. Best part about that is when I go to take it out of the bag later, it's in that same knot. It hasn't become unraveled. It hasn't, somebody didn't have to worry about, did I do the over, under, and twist it right? Trying to get somebody to do that at 1 a.m., good luck. So that's why I wrap cables that way. Bill asks, can you fold tie extension cords or garden hoses too? Does the same procedure work for those two? It definitely works for electrical extension cords. All of mine are coiled that way, whether they are in my gigging bags or in just at the house here. And I do it for the same reason, especially with extension cords. Garden hoses, I have not had similar luck. No, those need to be coiled. And over-under tends to work pretty well with a garden hose. For my garden hoses, you can go to like Amazon or Home Depot or your local hardware store maybe, and I just get a little roller thing that I can just roll the garden hose up on, and that way it rolls in and out, and it's totally fine. I'm sure that would work for XLR. In fact, it does work for XLR and 1/4-inch cables. We've all seen them. I don't have the room in my travel in my vehicle to carry all of my cables on rolls. if you're touring or something, then that's going to be great because it's super easy to roll them up, super easy to take them out, and they definitely don't get messed up. But I don't have room to do that with all my cables. So yes, Bill, extension cords, yes, you can fold tie them. I like that, fold tie. That's the right description. And if we say you can fold tie these cables. If we just call it fold tie, then more people will just accept it as a norm because candidly, it is a norm. I know this is offensive to many of you who are doing it the hard way. That's fine. I get it. No problem. If I'm coiling your cables, I will coil them your way. If we're coiling my cables, we will coil them my way. That's all it is. I will do it the hard way if they're your cables and we've used your cables for the gig. Of course, obviously. I'm not that kind of a jerk, but when they're my cables, I want them done the way that I know they're going to be reliable. Okay. I think that gets us through most of our questions. We have some Gear Gab coming up. And actually, I guess Gear Gab kind of starts now with two things that I reviewed recently. The first is the this all-in-one beginner electronic drum kit from Alesis called the Turbo Max. And this is not something anybody listening to this show would gig with. It could be used as a practice kit. It is one of the more reliable, sort of lower budget friendly e-drum kits that I've used. The mesh pads are better than I expected out of a budget friendly kit like this. The cymbals are the cymbals. They're the hard plastic cymbals that kind of sort of feel like cymbals, but not really. And the bass drum and hi-hat are just pedals, so you don't get any action on the hi-hat. But with a budget-friendly kit, you're not going to. So for a beginner, for sure, for a rehearsal room, it could be the right thing, especially if you're trying to keep volume very low. The most impressive part about this is the sounds. The sounds coming out of this brain are fantastic. They sound really good. And the thing comes with a stool and headphones. Obviously, you might choose to use your own. But these sounds are like Alesis quality sounds is really what it comes down to. And they sound really great. And it's pretty cool because the little brain has Bluetooth in it, so you can play along with your favorite songs without having to rig together some aux cord thing or whatever, which you could do. It's got drum lessons built into it with a 30-day free trial and like 100 lessons to keep forever. It's a pretty cool little thing. So, it's the Alesis Turbo Max, and I'll find you a Sweetwater link for it too. But I was impressed with this for what it is. I've played a lot of, you wind up at somebody's house and, they've for like a rehearsal or something, and it turns out, they've got an e-drum kit, and it's something that, you would never work right or any of this. And, but this one works. Turbo Max. And, I'll put an Amazon link in if you want. They've got it on Amazon for $270. So it's a great way to get started. Easy to set up. And like I said, the sounds are fantastic on it. So if you need something, this is the best under $500 e-drum kit that I have played. Will I use it in the rehearsal room? Probably not, candidly. I don't need to. Certainly in my rehearsal room here, the sound is not an issue because we've soundproofed the room. And then with Casual Gravity, where we have a separate rehearsal room, that room is built for, it's the worst part about the noise in that building is that we often are hearing other bands rehearsing through the walls. I don't know what these people are doing to their ears, but they're not being kind to them. When I'm through a hallway and two doors, their door and our door, and I'm hearing them at like 75 dB or something coming into the room. It's loud sometimes. I don't know what they're doing. They're setting up full PAs in their rehearsal rooms, I guess. I don't know, man. It's crazy. But Speaking of protecting our hearing or listening properly, I recently got a set of the Dark Matter Labs. We had Tal and Dave on the show earlier this year. I'm pretty sure it was earlier this year. Yeah, it was right after NAMM because they basically debuted at NAMM. So I have a set of those. They sent me the DMA6 BA6 custom IEMs, which are their 6-driver version. $1,500 is the retail price on their website. It's got 6 balanced armatures in there with a 3-way crossover. I am actually wearing them now while I am recording the episode. And here's an interesting thing about these, this specific set. I went and got my ears molded the day that I was to come down with a fever for Lyme disease. So I wasn't first of all, I wasn't sure what kind of inflammation I had going on in my head on that day, or, and that can change, obviously, how the molds fit your ears. And then also, and I've been to this audiologist before, however he mixed the chemical, like the goop that goes in your ear, it's like it's the stuff, they mix it together, they put it in your ear, it starts to harden, you take it out, you send it in. For whatever reason, the way he mixed it, it had bubbles in it, all like air bubbles. And so there were no smooth edges. And I even asked him about it when he gave them to me. I'm like, dude, are these going to be okay? Like, do we need to redo this? That doesn't look right. And he's like, no, it'll be fine. Well, I sent it into Dark Matter and they're like, this is pretty janky, dude. And so we decided to do an experiment because they wanted to see if they could work with something that bad and still get it right. Now, here's the thing. I know we've said this a million times on the show. If you're getting custom fit anything for your ears, ear plugs, ear monitors, whatever it is, the fit is the important part. I mean, it's one of the important things. And the company making it might not get it right, even if all of the circumstances are perfect. And that's just because, who knows? Maybe your ears were swollen that day. Maybe you moved your mouth in a way that you weren't supposed to and the doctor didn't catch you. And so, you wind up with something that's just not a right fit. No matter the reason for a fit problem, all of these manufacturers, Dark Matter for sure, but everybody that I've ever talked with wants you to send them back to them and work with them to get the fit right, because that's the important thing. So this was an experiment that was sort of pushing the edges of how good can we get it on the first try with potentially really bad information, right? I mean, that's essentially what this was. And I got to say, they work. They did it. I don't think, and I've only played one gig with these, but I don't think I am going to need to have them refit or adjust the fit on these at all. But I noticed some things when I first got them. I put them in, the left ear sealed, the right ear, man, it was so close. Like it didn't have that pop when I pulled it out, and I was like, is it sealing? Is it not? So I ran a seal test on it, and I heard the seal test, and I'm going to talk about the audio from the seal test in a minute. But in terms of the seal test, well, all a seal test is just a file, an MP3 or WAV file, whatever, that plays low-end sounds to high-end sounds, or plays them all together at the same time. You can have, a couple of different pitches playing simultaneously. And low-end sounds are the things that tell you immediately if you've got a good seal or not. Because if you don't have a good seal, you just won't hear them. They won't feel the same in your head. And immediately it was like, oh yeah, no, I have a great seal. I was a little worried, how they would hold up with me moving around on stage and sweating, and not that I move my feet around on stage, but just, moving while I'm playing and singing and all of that stuff, was the seal going to hold? I'd used them several times to record podcasts and they worked fine, but it's different. My hands are basically free when I'm recording a podcast. So if I were to, even without thinking about it, go and give the ear a little extra nudge, would I remember that I did that? So the stage test was the test, and we played, 3 hours on Friday night, and they worked out great. Sound wise, I noticed some interesting things. the low end on these goes so much lower than I have ever heard or felt. I have a test that goes from like 5 hertz or something up to 25,000 hertz or whatever, well beyond the ranges of certainly my hearing and human hearing in general. And what was really interesting with these, and for the first time, I don't think I've noticed this with any other set before, is I started feeling it before I started hearing it. And I mentioned this to Dave Friesman over there, who I know is listening eventually, because Dave is one of a small group of you who has literally listened to every episode of giggab, which I find super impressive and humbling. But Dave said to me, "Oh yeah, we have our armatures tuned so that they go down to 10 hertz." And I have to say, on stage, that made a huge difference, being able to feel the kick drum and the bass kind of in my head to give that foundation. It was very interesting to feel it and also hear it. But that low end feeling is interesting to experience, and I liked it quite a bit. The other thing I noticed about these is that the high end of them is extremely articulate. In a good way. It's not, I couldn't have done this. I mean, I've done hours of podcasts with them now, but I couldn't have done 45 minutes of a podcast if like the high end was harsh or anything like that. And I certainly wouldn't want to play a gig hearing cymbals that are harsh and terrible. That's not what this is. This is just a very, very present high end. As soon as I put them in at the gig, I had to go into the EQ of my overall signal that I send to my ears, and I realized that with what I was using previously, I had put a little boost, kind of a shelf boost on the top end, starting at about 4K. I flattened that right out. Everything was fine after that. I still choose to pull with casual gravity specifically. I pull kind of a light slope, about 3 dB, focused at about 2,500 hertz. And that's because Tom's voice and Jeff's guitar, we play a lot of hard rock songs, and they sit in that range, and it will bother my ears if, after 3 hours of just hearing that. So I pull that EQ down. I can still hear the guys fine, and I have a nice smooth mix. But these worked great. I'm impressed. And the fit especially. Like I said, they intentionally don't make the ears too thick. Or the earpieces. My ears stay with what my ears are, but they essentially don't make the earpieces too thick. Some vendors do choose to make them thick so that you really kind of feel that pressure in your ear. You've got a seal, and you really hear it when you pop out. Their MO is to make them as thick as needed and no thicker. Essentially, those are my words, not theirs, but it's effectively what they said to me, and that's certainly what I'm feeling here. And I'm gonna use them for a couple more gigs and see how they do. But before I decide, okay, I'm not worried about this anymore. But I'm not really that worried about it anymore. It's pretty good. So yeah, so check them out. I'll put a link obviously in the show notes to Dark Matter. All right, we have some more gear gab to do here. Lane wrote in. I asked about gigging. Bags, backpacks, etc. And Lane says the D'Addario Backline series of backpacks may be the best gigging accessory ever created, worth every penny. And I had not even heard of these before, but sure enough, they are $255, at least for the one that I found. This is the Backline Gear Transport Backpack, and it's got it's a dark gray, black backpack, red zippers so that you can find them easily, and it's got a little laptop compartment in it. It's got the compartments are not like just a typical backpack. It is very compartmentalized, so you can fit like microphones in, or your cables or other things can all just kind of fit into this backpack in little compartments that are built for what we as musicians would need. It's pretty cool. So I might have to get one of these and check it out. But thank you, Lane. And there's a small and a large. So the large on Amazon at least is $255. The small is $200. And little like sleeves for microphones and places to roll your cables and put them in there. Oh, maybe this will make people roll cables, because with this, if you rolled your cable and you put it in, it's just one cable per slot. So you can just put cables in and they stay where they are. They're not going to get messed around. Oh yeah, this is pretty good. Spot for your water bottle. Straps on the side to hold like a mic stand or a guitar stand, perhaps. That I could see being valuable. Very interesting. But yeah, definitely a backpack designed specifically for us gigging musicians. Lane, you answered the call for sure. Thank you for that. Good stuff. The next thing that I have on the list in terms of gear gab is the Roland DrumLink system. And these are wireless trigger adapters for your electronic drums. So Roland and Drum Workshop created DrumLink here so that you can just set it and forget it, right? You just plug it all in and now it's wireless and you don't have to run as many cables when you get to the next gig. Like that. It's fascinating. Yeah. Huh. Wireless in a snap. And then there you go. Huh. Fascinating stuff. There's like a little hub that captures all the signals from up to 15 of the little units. So you put the little units near your electronic cymbals and your electronic, drum pads. And then you have the hub that can take up to 15 signals and then just send it wherever you need it to send it. Wireless triggering. Love it. Love it. Love it. Very cool. So, thanks for sending that in. That's a pretty interesting thing. Pat sends in our next bit of gear gab with a new recorder. Let me find it, Pat. Thank you for sending it in. Pat shared, he did some recording it was actually on Facebook, and he told me about the Zoom Q2n-4K recorder here. It is video and audio. It'll do 4K at 30 frames, and it will do stereo audio. And it is a tight little handheld kind of unit thing here for capturing your gigs or your studio sessions, whatever you want. $220, and you just put this thing up and again set it and forget it, and it'll record to an SD card. You can take an audio in if you want. I know a lot of folks take a splitter out from their ears mix and send that in to mix in with the audio from the microphones for a unit like this. So yeah, it's the Zoom Q2n-4K for $220 on Amazon and maybe other prices elsewhere. It is built to mount onto a microphone stand, so you can really kind of put it where you want it. Very cool. Thank you for that, Pat. Love that. Folks, if you have stuff you want to send in, of course, feedback at giggabpodcast.com. One last thing comes from our friend and listener, Andy, who had some response to a recent query where we had somebody write in having trouble with getting enough gain for their singer. And they're using a Telefunken M80 microphone, which generally has super high gain. And so we talked about some options. And Andy says, I have a couple of thoughts to add to what you said about this. My first suspicion is mic technique. In general, singers need to be closer to the Telefunken M80 than a lot of other mics that they sing on, as well as being right in front of it the way that I described. My thoughts with an M80 is that I think about it like the element is at the back of the barrel and I have to sing straight down into the barrel to get there. That's not actually true. The element is much closer to the front of the barrel, but that's how it feels singing into it. So that's what he was saying. But he says people might not be close enough to it to take advantage of its gain. He says, I've had conversations with another audio engineer I work with before a gig that went like, do you think we can trust this band to stay right on the M80s enough to use them? Interesting. The other thing that I would check is the whole signal path through the mixer. Is there a compressor on the channel that's used for this vocalist? If so, at least for testing, I would bypass it. Is the audio being routed through a subgroup to the main output? Is that subgroup level at unity, or is it being, you're pulling down 5 dB from it? And what happens if you plug that mic into another channel on the mixer? Basically just troubleshooting and honoring the troubleshooting process, which is, of course, make one change, test, make another change, test. He says, there have definitely been times that I set a compressor too aggressively and ended up scratching my head about why I couldn't get something loud enough, and then looked that I saw that I was into 20 dB of gain reduction, and both found the problem and was very impressed that the compressor was transparent enough that I didn't hear it working. Yeah, fair. Thank you for that, Andy. Good stuff. I love it. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks to everybody who sent in all of the gear gab and tips and questions. I love all of the questions. We love doing this. And when there's enough of them in, we'll do another episode like this and knock them out. And I will do, people ask me, how come you don't do solo episodes all the time? There's two reasons. Number one is I've learned in 20 years of podcasting that if I am scheduled to do something with another human, that accountability makes it really easy to just sit down and record the show. This episode, for those of you who are astute, did not come out as usual at 3 a.m. Eastern on Monday. Why? Because it didn't exist yet. So I was planning on doing it last week. I thought, I'll do it this weekend. And there was going to be a night where Lisa was out. And then it turns out she wasn't out. And I was like, I'll just do it on Monday. And, then this is how this happens. So that's generally why I don't leave it to myself to do solo episodes. But I love doing them. Like once I sat down and started pulling the agenda together, then I was like, I'm in it. I'm off to the races. I want to do it. Here we are. We're having fun. But yeah. But if you give me enough agenda items, I will happily do solo episodes. But I also like the episodes with other people. I like getting to meet some of these folks, like that interview recently with Diamond. I mean, he was great last week, right? But I also like the recurring folks that we have on too. Mike Schulte is great. We're having Dan East come back on. I love all the conversations, and that's what, it all inspires me. But I like conversing with you, either, with the messages. Go sign up for the mailing list at giggab podcast.com, and that way you get all of our stuff and you can reply to it, and that comes straight to me. And I think Sadie also gets them too, in case there's like procedural stuff to do. But I'm the production team on the, at least the episode side of this. Sadie does all of the reels and all of those things, but it's me. So I kind of like this one being a solo effort. And this episode, obviously, it's as solo as it gets, except it's really not solo, because without you, there would have been no episode today. So thank you for hanging out for the last hour or so. Thanks for sending in all your stuff to feedback@giggabpodcast.com. Make sure to subscribe on Instagram. Those reels are fun. Sadie does a great job pulling things together. There's extra content she makes me record it. So go check it out. Have a good one, folks. And hey, do me one more favor. Always be performing, hey? See you next time. Later.